Officer Eldric Thornfield stepped out of his patrol car into the cold drizzle of Pine Hollow's deserted Main Street. Years on the force had carved lines into his face deeper than the Ohio winters ever could. Clutching a lukewarm coffee, he drifted towards Sable Ashwynd's bakery, his nightly ritual to feel something warm in his bones before the shift's end. But tonight, his tired eyes caught a shape that didn't belong in the soft glow of fresh bread and pastries. Curled up by the window was a golden dog, fur tangled but still striking under the streetlight. He was no ordinary stray, too noble in his posture, too quiet in his hunger. Eldric paused, his boots soaked by the rain pooling on the sidewalk. He crouched down, ignoring the dull ache in his knees, and whispered to the animal through the glass. "You waiting for scraps, boy?" The dog lifted his head slowly, amber eyes locking onto Eldric's with an understanding that made his chest tighten. Zephyr, Eldric would name him that later, raised a paw and pressed it against the window, just above a tray of buttery croissants. The simple gesture cut deeper than Eldric expected. He hadn't let himself feel this pull since losing Max, his old K9 partner buried behind his lonely cabin. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat as he reached a hand to the cold glass, tracing the outline of the stray's paw with his fingertip. Pushing into the bakery, Eldric was wrapped in the smell of warm dough and sugar. Sable Ashwynd, silver-haired and sharp-tongued in the way only old friends could be, glanced up from the counter. "Well, Eldric Thornfield, came for your midnight donut or to scare off trouble?" she teased, drying her hands on her apron. Eldric managed a weary smile. "Not tonight, Sable. There's someone outside who needs it more than I do. Can you spare a couple of those croissants and some water?" Sable peered past him at the window, softening instantly. Without a word, she packed a small bag and filled an old mixing bowl with fresh water. Eldric thanked her under his breath, dropped a few crumpled bills on the counter, and stepped back out into the rain. Kneeling by Zephyr, he set the food down gently. The dog sniffed, then ate slowly, as if savoring each bite like a lost memory of home. Eldric stroked the damp fur, feeling the warmth seep into his own cold hands. Across the street, hidden by shadows and drifting mist, a figure watched this quiet act of kindness unfold. Eldric Thornfield had no way of knowing that feeding a stray named Zephyr would unravel secrets buried deep in Pine Hollow's past. Secrets that would test every truth he held about loyalty, forgiveness, and the ghosts he thought he'd left behind. The following morning, Eldric Thornfield found himself back on Main Street long before his shift began. Sleep had teased him for an hour, then abandoned him altogether. Every time he shut his eyes, he saw Zephyr's gaunt frame curled in the cold, trusting him without a word. It stirred something inside Eldric he'd locked away since Max died, a promise he once made to protect those who couldn't ask for help. As dawn broke over Pine Hollow, the street looked almost gentle under the soft pink light. Eldric parked his cruiser near Sable Ashwynd's bakery again and scanned the sidewalk. Zephyr was there, just where he'd left him, though now the dog lay tucked against the brick wall, tail flicking weakly when he saw Eldric approach. Eldric crouched down, ignoring the pinch in his back. "Morning, Zephyr," he murmured, testing the name on his tongue like an old prayer. He laid out another pastry from a bag Sable had insisted he take, along with scraps she'd saved. Zephyr ate slower this time, lifting his head now and then to nudge Eldric's hand. Nearby, early risers paused to watch, some shaking their heads at a grown man crouched in uniform beside a stray, others softening at the sight of kindness rare in a town used to hard edges. Eldric knew he couldn't leave Zephyr to the streets another night. He pulled out his phone and called Corvin Darkwell, Pine Hollow's only veterinarian and an old classmate who owed him a favor or two. Corvin answered on the second ring, voice groggy but alert. "Thornfield, 7 in the morning. You better not have found another raccoon in your shed." Eldric managed a laugh. "No raccoon, but I got a dog that needs looking at. Stray. He's different, Corvin. Can you meet me at your clinic in an hour?" Corvin hesitated, then sighed into the phone. "Bring him in. And Eldric, don't get attached yet. Strays have a way of breaking your heart twice." Eldric pocketed the phone and scratched behind Zephyr's ear, whispering, Not this one. He's got nowhere else to go. He lifted Zephyr carefully, feeling the animal's bones shift under too thin fur, and carried him toward the cruiser. Zephyr didn't struggle. He simply laid his head against Eldric's shoulder, breathing slow and warm. Driving through Pine Hollow's quiet streets, Eldric caught his own reflection in the rearview mirror, a man weathered by loss, yet suddenly holding hope in the form of a hungry dog. He didn't know that behind him, a black sedan lingered at a distance. Inside, Lysandra Ravensong, the town's most persistent reporter, snapped photos through a long lens. She knew Eldric's life better than he wished, and now she smelled a story worth digging into, one that would unearth more than just an old stray. Corvin Darkwell's clinic sat at the edge of town, a small brick building surrounded by tall oaks that seemed to whisper secrets when the wind picked up. Eldric Thornfield pulled his cruiser into the gravel lot, careful not to jostle Zephyr curled on the back seat. The dog lifted his head as if sensing they were somewhere safe, eyes following Eldric's every move with a silent question. "Will you leave me here too?" Inside, the clinic smelled of antiseptic and warm hay. Corvin waited by the exam table, sleeves rolled up, glasses perched on his forehead. He raised a brow when he saw Eldric carrying Zephyr like a sleeping child. "Well, you weren't kidding. He looks better than most strays I see, but he's got stories in those eyes." Corvin's tone was light, but his touch was gentle as he checked Zephyr's ribs, paws, and ears. Eldric stood back, arms crossed, eyes locked on every movement. He didn't flinch when Corvin drew blood or checked old scars hidden beneath Zephyr's fur. "Any idea how old he is?" Eldric asked, voice softer than usual. Corvin paused, feeling Zephyr's heartbeat. "Hard to say for sure. Maybe 5, maybe 6. He's been on the streets a while, but not his whole life. Someone fed him once. Someone cared. Until they didn't." A low growl echoed from the corner. Eldric turned to see Astrid Stormborn, the department's youngest deputy, standing just inside the doorway. She pushed back her rain-damp hair and gave Eldric a look halfway between curiosity and warning. "Sheriff Frostgrave wants you back at headquarters. He's asking why you've been babysitting a mutt all morning instead of writing up last night's incident reports." Eldric let out a frustrated sigh. "Tell Orion Frostgrave I'll be there soon. Zephyr comes first." Astrid's gaze softened at the name. She stepped closer, kneeling to scratch Zephyr's chin. "Zephyr, huh? Fitting. He looks like he's carried storms on his back for years." For a moment, the small room felt lighter, a rare thing in Eldric's world. But outside, rain began tapping the windows harder, as if reminding them that peace never lasted long in Pine Hollow. Unseen to them all, parked just down the road, Lysandra Ravensong adjusted her camera lens again. Through the rain-specked glass, she captured every moment. The hardened cop cradling a stray as if it were family, the young deputy kneeling in trust, the vet looking too concerned for just another rescue. She knew this town hid sins older than Eldric's badge, and Zephyr, the stray no one knew, was about to pull those secrets into the light for everyone to see. By afternoon, Eldric Thornfield sat at his cluttered desk inside Pine Hollow's modest sheriff's office. Papers were scattered beside his untouched coffee, which had gone cold hours ago. Zephyr rested under the desk, curled into a tight ball, breathing softly as if afraid to dream too deeply. Every so often, Eldric slid his boot across the floor to feel the dog's fur brush against him, a quiet reassurance that he wasn't imagining this fragile bond. Across the room, Sheriff Orion Frostgrave stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the drizzle soak the dusty street outside. His voice, when it came, was calm but sharp as a blade. "You can't keep him here, Thornfield. This is a law office, not a kennel. If the mayor sees a stray under your desk, we'll have questions we can't answer." Eldric didn't lift his eyes. "He's not just a stray, Orion. There's something about him. He knows things. He's been somewhere he shouldn't." Orion turned, irritation flickering across his stone-carved face. "Dogs don't hold secrets, Eldric. People do. And right now, half the town's gossiping because you've got a ghost of a mutt following you around like he owns your soul. Focus on your cases." Leave the dog at Corvin's or take him to the shelter. The word shelter made Zephyr flinch under the desk. Eldric felt it in his foot and clenched his fists. No. He stays with me until I find out who let him end up like this. Before Orion could argue, the door swung open. Astrid Stormborn strode in, raindrops glistening on her uniform. She tossed a folded piece of paper onto Eldric's desk. Got this from Lysandra Ravensong's car. She's been following you since last night. Photos, notes. She thinks Zephyr's connected to the old Ashwynd farm fire from 10 years ago. The room fell silent. Even Zephyr seemed to sense the sudden tension, lifting his head to peer up at Eldric with dark, questioning eyes. Orion snatched the paper, scanning the scribbled notes and blurry photographs of Eldric carrying Zephyr. His jaw tightened. If that reporter prints this, she'll drag up half the town's dirt for a headline. And if she's right about the Ashwynd fire, Sable won't survive the whispers again. Eldric ran a hand over his face, exhaustion and dread twisting in his gut. He remembered that fire too well. The smell of smoke, the screams in the orchard, the unanswered questions that still haunted Pine Hollow's nights. Outside, unnoticed, Lysandra sat behind the wheel of her battered sedan, watching the office door. Her recorder blinked red on the passenger seat. She didn't care if the truth scorched the old scars of Pine Hollow. She'd spent her life chasing ghosts, and Zephyr was about to lead her straight into the darkest corner of them all. Night settled over Pine Hollow like an old blanket full of holes. It offered no warmth, only shadows that moved when you weren't looking. Eldric Thornfield stood on Sable Ashwind's back porch, the boards creaking under his boots. Zephyr pressed against his leg, his fur damp from the mist that clung to the orchard behind the house. Eldric had come for answers, but the closer he got to Sable's door, the more the past clawed at his mind. Sable opened the door before he could knock. Her eyes, usually bright with sharp humor, looked hollow under the porch light. She stepped aside wordlessly, letting Eldric and Zephyr slip into the small kitchen that smelled of old wood and cinnamon. On the table lay a stack of yellowed newspaper clippings, the same fire Lysandra Ravensong had hinted at. Sable sat down heavily, motioning for Eldric to do the same. I knew this day would come, Eldric. He's not just a stray. He's a reminder. Zephyr curled under the table, eyes flicking from Eldric to Sable as if listening to every word. Eldric kept his voice low. Tell me the truth, Sable. About the night your barn burned. About the boy who disappeared. I need to know why Zephyr keeps leading me back here. Sable's hands trembled as she picked up a clipping showing flames devouring her family's orchard. That fire wasn't an accident. And my brother, he never really left. He hid things on this land, things he feared the wrong people would find. Eldric's gut twisted. He'd been a rookie then, standing helpless as the fire consumed the night. No suspect was ever charged, and the Ashwynd name nearly died with it until Sable rebuilt piece by piece. Now, the only witness left was a silent dog who shouldn't know anything but hunger. You think Zephyr's seen something out there? After all these years? Eldric asked, doubt warring with the strange certainty that had been growing since he first fed the dog. Sable nodded slowly. Animals remember, Eldric. They carry ghosts better than people do. If he's come to you, it's because he trusts you to finish what my brother couldn't. Her voice broke then, rough and raw like old wounds torn open. Outside, the wind stirred the orchard leaves, whispering secrets Zephyr alone seemed to understand. The dog rose, nose twitching, and trotted to the back door, pawing at the wood as if urging Eldric to follow. Eldric's pulse thundered in his ears. He reached for his flashlight, heart pounding. He knew what he had to do. Follow Zephyr into the orchard's dark belly and uncover whatever truth had smoldered there since the night of the Ashwynd fire. As he opened the door, the cold air bit his face, and somewhere beyond the trees, someone watched, waiting for him to take that first step into the forgotten blaze. Eldric Thornfield stepped into the orchard with Zephyr trotting silently ahead, his fur glowing pale under the crescent moon. The wind carried a damp chill through the rows of old apple trees, branches creaking like whispered confessions. Every step pulled Eldric deeper into memories he had tried to bury, the smell of smoke, the distant cries, and the sight of flames swallowing the Ashwynd barn all those years ago. Zephyr stopped suddenly, nose to the ground, tail rigid. Eldric swept his flashlight over the overgrown path, catching glimpses of broken crates and rusted tools half swallowed by weeds. His breath steamed in the cold air as he crouched beside Zephyr, brushing aside leaves to reveal a patch of disturbed soil. He frowned. Someone's been here recently, he thought, feeling a chill crawl up his spine that had nothing to do with the night air. Behind him, twigs cracked. Eldric spun around, hand resting on the grip of his sidearm out of habit more than intent. But it was only Fenris Blackthorn, the local boy who liked to haunt the orchard despite every adult's warning. Fenris stood frozen, wide-eyed, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Mr. Thornfield, you shouldn't be here tonight," Fenris whispered, voice thin as the mist curling around their ankles. Eldric lowered his gun, heart still pounding. "What are you doing out here, Fenris? It's the middle of the night." Fenris stepped closer, glancing at Zephyr with a mix of fear and awe. "I heard things. Voices. Someone's been digging back by the old well. I swear I saw a man in a black coat. He comes every week. He doesn't see me, but he's looking for something. Or hiding it." Eldric glanced at Zephyr, whose ears were pinned back, body tense. The dog tugged lightly at Eldric's sleeve, urging him to move. "Go home, Fenris," Eldric ordered gently but firmly. "Lock your door. And if anyone asks, you were never here tonight." Fenris hesitated, then bolted toward the edge of the orchard, his flashlight bobbing like a firefly in the darkness. Alone again, Eldric let Zephyr lead him past the broken fence toward the forgotten well. The trees crowded closer here, branches clawing at his coat. As they reached the clearing, his flashlight flickered over fresh shovel marks in the dirt beside the crumbling stones. A tarp lay half-buried beneath loose earth. Zephyr growled low in his throat, fur bristling. Eldric knelt, fingertips brushing the tarp's edge. Somewhere in his gut, he already knew. Whatever lay beneath would drag Old Pine Hollow sins into the light, and not everyone would survive what he was about to uncover. Eldric Thornfield's fingers curled around the edge of the tarp, the damp soil clinging to his knuckles as Zephyr stood guard, low growls vibrating in his chest. The orchard around them was silent now, the wind holding its breath as if dreading what lay beneath. With one sharp pull, Eldric peeled back the tarp, revealing a weathered metal box, rusted at the corners but locked tight as a coffin. His pulse thudded painfully in his ears. He pried at the latch with the butt of his flashlight until it snapped with a soft, final click. Inside, beneath layers of oilcloth, lay a stack of old photos, yellowed receipts, and a thin leather journal whose cover was scorched on one side, a relic of the Ashwynd fire. Eldric thumbed through the pages, his chest tightening with each line written in a desperate, looping scrawl. It wasn't just ramblings. It was a confession. Zephyr nudged closer, sniffing the box as if recognizing its scent. Eldric whispered, "Good boy. You brought me here for this, didn't you?" He turned a page and found a name circled again and again. Orion Frostgrave. Eldric's breath caught. Orion, his own sheriff, the man who'd stood by him all these years, connected to the fire? To Sable's brother's disappearance? The orchard seemed to close in, roots coiling around secrets that refused to stay buried. A sudden snap of a branch made Eldric flinch. He slammed the box shut and swung his light toward the trees. There, half-shadowed by gnarled trunks, stood Rowan Bloodcroft, the old pastor, his overcoat flapping in the night wind. His eyes locked on Eldric's, glimmering with an emotion that was neither fear nor surprise, but something darker, older. "Put it back, Eldric," Rowan called out, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Some truths are meant to rot in the soil." Eldric rose, the box clutched to his chest. Zephyr pressed against his leg. "How long have you known?" Eldric demanded, his words sharp, trembling. Rowan stepped closer, boots sinking into the soft ground. "Long enough to know that digging them up won't save you, won't save Sable, and sure as hell won't save Pine Hollow. Some debts are paid in silence." Zephyr barked then, A single, fierce sound that shattered the orchard's hush. Eldric tightened his grip on the box, heart pounding. He realized in that moment that every lie, every whispered warning, led to this clearing under the cold moonlight. He would not bury this truth again. Not tonight. Not while Zephyr still stood guard beside him. A living testament to what loyalty really cost in a town built on secrets. Eldric Thornfield gripped the rusted box as if it might vanish if he blinked. Zephyr stayed pressed to his side, muscles tense, eyes never leaving Rowan Bloodcroft. The orchard felt alive around them, branches whispering secrets older than either man's conscience. Rowan's breath clouded in the cold air as he stepped closer, voice low but steady. Think carefully, Eldric. If you walk out with that, you drag every ghost in this town into daylight. Eldric's throat felt raw. I've spent my life burying things for men like you, for Orion, for Pine Hollow's damned reputation. But this... He shook the box slightly, the papers inside rustling like dry leaves. This is murder covered by lies, and I won't wear that on my badge anymore. Zephyr let out a low growl, as if echoing his resolve. Rowan's eyes flicked to the dog with a flicker of disdain. That mutt will ruin you. Before Eldric could answer, footsteps crunched over the frosty ground behind him. He spun to find Sheriff Orion Frostgrave emerging from the shadows, face pale under the moonlight. His hand rested on his holster, but his eyes were locked on the box in Eldric's arms, and for the first time they looked small, vulnerable. Eldric, Orion said, his voice softer than Eldric had ever heard it. You don't know what you're holding. You think you want the truth, but you don't. Eldric barked a bitter laugh that startled even Zephyr. You burned a man alive, Orion. You let the town pity you while Sable's family fell apart. You hid behind your badge and let me stand beside you every day while you fed me half-truths. I trusted you like a brother. Orion's hand tightened on his holster, but he didn't draw. I did what I had to do. He was going to ruin this place. Ruin all of us. Rowan stepped between them, palms raised. Listen to reason, both of you. This truth serves no one now. Pine Hollow survived because men like Orion made hard choices. Walk away, Eldric. Let the dead stay buried. But Zephyr lunged forward then, teeth bared, a protective snarl ripping through the cold orchard air. Eldric didn't flinch. He stepped closer to Orion, so close he could smell the stale sweat of fear. This town survives on silence. But I won't. In the distance, the faint beam of a flashlight danced among the trees. Astrid Stormborn and Lysandra Ravensong closing in fast, drawn by the echoes of barking and shouting. Eldric looked at Orion, at Rowan, at Zephyr who stood unafraid. In that breathless second, Eldric knew. The reckoning had begun. And no orchard, no badge, no old blood pact would stop what he was about to unleash. The orchard exploded with voices and flashlight beams as Astrid Stormborn pushed through the tangled branches. Lysandra Ravensong close on her heels, recorder blinking red in her pocket. Zephyr barked wildly, circling Eldric Thornfield like a guardian spirit made of fur and teeth. Orion Frostgrave's hand still hovered over his holster, but his eyes darted between the newcomers and the rusted box clutched to Eldric's chest. The box that could end his career and freedom in one breath. Astrid stepped between the men, gun lowered but voice sharp. Sheriff Frostgrave, stand down. Eldric, put the box down. We do this by the book. Eldric didn't move. He felt Zephyr's warm body pressing against his knee, steadying him when his pulse threatened to crack his ribs. He stared at Astrid, his last ally in a department built on secrets. No more books, Astrid. No more reports that get lost in filing cabinets. This ends tonight. Rowan Bloodcroft raised his hands, voice calm like a snake sliding through grass. Listen to your deputy, Eldric. You think you're a hero, but you're just tearing open old wounds. Pine Hollow can't survive another scandal. You'll burn down the orchard, the church, your own house. For what? For a mutt and a dead man's lies. Lysandra pushed past Astrid. Recorder lifted. Keep talking, Pastor. Every word you say prints tomorrow morning. Her eyes gleamed behind her glasses. The hunter's look Eldric had seen only once, long ago, when she'd buried a corrupt mayor with 3 paragraphs and a front-page headline. Orion's shoulders sagged under the weight of that look. His hand slipped away from his holster. For the first time, he looked like an old man clinging to power he no longer owned. Zephyr whined, pressing his muzzle into Eldric's palm. In that soft sound, Eldric found the last spark of courage he needed. I buried enough with Max. I won't bury this too. Astrid, you trust me? The young deputy nodded once, fierce and loyal. Then cuff them both, Rowan and Orion. Read them their rights. And if they resist, you shoot to stop, not to warn. The orchard fell into stunned silence, broken only by the wind rattling dead branches overhead. Astrid drew her cuffs, her hands steady. Lyssandra's recorder caught every breath, every bark, every curse. Eldric turned away from the sight of Orion sinking to his knees, the once untouchable sheriff now just another ghost to haunt Pine Hollow. He buried his face in Zephyr's fur and whispered, "You did good, boy. You brought it all home." But deep down, Eldric knew the hardest part still waited in the cold dawn ahead. Dawn broke over Pine Hollow with a hush, as if the town itself were holding its breath, unsure what came next now that the truth no longer slept beneath orchard roots. Eldric Thornfield stood on the steps of the sheriff's office, Zephyr sitting close against his leg, tail sweeping the dusty wood. Inside, Orion Frostgrave and Rowan Bloodcroft waited behind steel bars, silent and stripped of the power they'd worn like armor for decades. Astrid Stormborn had stayed at Eldric's side through the night, filing reports, answering calls from state investigators, shielding him when old allies turned into vipers. She stepped onto the porch now, 2 steaming mugs in her hands. She pressed one into Eldric's rough palm. "It's not over, you know. Papers will twist this into whatever sells. Folks will pick sides." Eldric looked at her, his eyes tired but clearer than they'd been in years. "I don't care anymore. The dead deserve their truth." Zephyr shifted, pressing his head into Eldric's thigh, as if sensing the heaviness that lingered behind the dawn. Lysandra Ravensong had gotten her story. Front page, full spread, the kind of headline that would stick to Pine Hollow's name for a generation. Yet for once, she hadn't asked for Eldric's thanks. She just nodded at him that morning, recorder off, and whispered, "Don't let them bury you too." By mid-morning, townsfolk gathered by the old orchard fence. Sable Ashwynd stood closest to Eldric, tears slipping unchecked down her lined face. She touched Zephyr's head, voice trembling. "He brought my brother peace. He brought you back to yourself, Eldric. I don't know how to thank him for that." Eldric knelt, ruffling Zephyr's ears. "He's not done yet, Sable. He's got years left to remind us that loyalty never dies. It just waits." A hush fell over the crowd when Vesper Nightshade arrived, Eldric's daughter, whom he hadn't hugged in 5 long years. She walked up, ignoring the cameras, and crouched to scratch Zephyr's chin. Then she looked up at Eldric, her eyes a mirror of his own regrets and hopes. "Mom would have liked him," she said softly. Eldric's throat closed up. He pulled Vesper into his arms, feeling forgiveness bleed slowly into old wounds. As the sun rose fully, driving the night's chill from the orchard and the steps where new truths were spoken aloud, Zephyr barked once. A sharp, clear note echoing through Pine Hollow. Eldric Thornfield looked out at his town, scars and all, and knew this time they would heal the right way. Beside him, Zephyr sat proud and unbroken, proof that even the forgotten can lead the lost back home.